Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine having everything you've ever worked for, the dreams, the future, the plan for a new life, stolen from you by the person you trusted most. Now picture this, the person who took it all, the one you called family, smiling through the phone, thinking they've won. What would you do? Would you fight back? Or let them walk away with your dreams? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about standing up, reclaiming what's yours, and showing the world that sometimes the quietest people have the most to fight for. Stay with us as we uncover the painful truth behind one woman's fight to get her future back, and the twist that no one saw coming. Samantha Harris sat at her kitchen table, staring out at the gray sky outside. The rain had begun to pour in torrents, tapping lightly against the windows like an urgent call. It mirrored the storm inside her heart. At 32, she had everything figured out. At least, that's what she thought. A stable career as an accountant, a cozy apartment in the city, and a dream she'd nurtured for over a decade to finally finish her medical degree. The $800,000 college fund her grandparents had left her was meant to be her stepping stone, the thing that would elevate her from her quiet life into the world of healing. She had worked so hard, juggled late-night classes with her full-time job, put her life on hold, all for this one shot. But that was before Rachel came into their lives. Rachel had swept in like a tornado, charming her way into Chris's heart after just 2 weeks of dating. Samantha had seen through the act right from the start, but her older brother, the one who'd always protected her, had been blinded by her smiles and the promises of a perfect life. To him, Rachel was everything, the woman who could save him from his endless series of failed business ventures, the woman who could finally give him the stability he craved. Samantha had never been fooled, but she tried to let it go. She tried to believe that maybe, just maybe, Rachel would prove her wrong. But when Samantha's phone buzzed that day, and Rachel's smug voice echoed from the speaker, it became clear. Samantha's dreams had been stolen from her, without warning, without hesitation. "I'm not sure why you're so upset, Samantha." Rachel's voice dripped with satisfaction. "You're never going to finish your degree anyway. It's time to grow up and face reality." Samantha gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, feeling the cool marble under her fingers as she steadied her breath. A shiver of disbelief ran through her. Rachel, with all her arrogance, had no idea what she was up against. The college fund, the one that Samantha had been counting on for years, was gone. The money Rachel had stolen was supposed to be a bridge to a new life, to a future Samantha had worked tirelessly to build. But Rachel had managed to access it with her cunning and her charm, using Chris's signature on the account to siphon off the funds. Rachel laughed through the phone as if she was proud of herself. Samantha could almost picture her, standing in front of a mirror in one of those oversized designer homes she seemed to collect, admiring her reflection. "It was easy," Rachel continued, a note of boredom in her voice. "James still had access to the account. All I needed was his signature. The house is gorgeous, by the way. Much better use of the money than some silly dream of becoming a doctor." Samantha's heart clenched. Her dream, the very reason she had sacrificed so much, was crumbling before her eyes. But something inside her stirred. This was not the end. Not by a long shot. "I see," Samantha replied, her voice steady, betraying no hint of the storm raging inside. "And how exactly did you manage that?" Rachel's smugness faltered for just a moment before she quickly regained her composure. "You'll find out soon enough, Sam. Anyway, enjoy your life of dreams." The call ended with a click, leaving Samantha alone in the stillness of her apartment. She sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her emotions threatening to pull her under. She wanted to scream, to throw something, but she didn't. Because she already knew the truth. Samantha had expected this. The moment Rachel had started showing too much interest in the fun during their family dinners, Samantha had known something was wrong. Her grandmother, the woman who had built an empire of trust and accounting knowledge, had always taught her one thing: trust your instincts, but verify your accounts. As her fingers hovered over her laptop, Samantha's mind raced. The funds were gone, but not for long. She had already taken steps. She had already anticipated this betrayal. Just weeks before Rachel's theft, Samantha had quietly moved the money into a new secure account. The transfer had been completed 2 weeks ago, and now the documents were in place, the proof of fraud meticulously recorded. Her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Chris. "I know the money was for your school, but Rachel and we really need this house. Don't be mad, okay?" Samantha read the message with a sinking feeling. Chris, the brother who had always been her protector, was now a pawn in Rachel's game. She felt a pang of sorrow for him, but she couldn't let that stop her. This was bigger than family loyalty. This was about reclaiming the future that had been stolen from her. She opened the drawer of her filing cabinet and pulled out the thick folder labeled Grandma's Letters. She skimmed through the papers until she found the most recent one, written just weeks before her grandmother passed away. "My dearest Samantha," it read, "I'm leaving you this money because I believe in your dream. Medicine isn't just a career for you, it's a calling. Don't let anyone tell you it's too late or too hard. And most importantly, don't let anyone take this opportunity from you. You're smarter than they think. Love, Grandma." Samantha ran her fingers over her grandmother's signature, tracing the familiar strokes. Her grandmother had always taught her how to read between the lines, how to spot lies, how to protect what mattered. She dialed her attorney, Olivia. "It's done. Rachel and Chris are trying to steal my future, but it won't work. I need the documentation of everything, the signatures, the forged documents, the calls to the bank." Olivia's voice was calm. "We've got everything, Samantha. Do you want to press charges now?" Samantha hesitated. She didn't want to destroy her brother, but Rachel needed to be stopped. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Not yet. Let them think they've won. I want to see how they react when they realize the money's gone." As she hung up, she opened her blinds and stared out at the city skyline, watching as the last of the sunlight slipped below the horizon. Rachel thought she'd won, but Samantha knew better. She had outsmarted her at every turn, and now it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. The real battle had only just begun. What would you do if your dreams were stolen from you in an instant? Would you fight back or let them go? How far would you go to protect your future from those who try to tear it down? Samantha is about to show Rachel just how powerful the quiet ones can be. Stay tuned for the next part of this shocking story. Samantha leaned back in her chair, her eyes fixed on the screen in front of her. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, bank statements, and recordings that proved Rachel's deceit. But the more she reviewed the documents, the more a knot tightened in her stomach. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about her education. It was about a betrayal so deep, so intimate, that it cut to the core of everything she thought she knew about family. She could feel the weight of her grandmother's words, echoing in her mind. "You're smarter than they think." But what did that really mean? Smart enough to fight back? Or smart enough to let it go, to walk away and save her brother from a fate he didn't deserve? Chris had always been there for her. He had protected her when they were children, standing up to bullies, comforting her during their parents' bitter divorce. Now, it felt like she was about to betray him, like she was going to take everything he had left and crush it. He didn't deserve this. But Rachel? Rachel was different. She had used his trust. She had preyed on his insecurities, manipulated him into believing that the two of them together were the perfect family. All for the money, all for the house. The phone buzzed, pulling Samantha from her thoughts. It was Chris again. "I need to talk," his text read. "Can we meet? There's so much I don't understand. I'm sorry, Sam." Samantha's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to reach out. After everything, after the confrontation, she thought he would stay away. But there it was, the olive branch, a lifeline. She stood up, pacing across the room, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had every right to walk away, to let the law take its course. But part of her, the part that still remembered the bond they shared as kids, wanted to forgive him. She wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he hadn't known what Rachel had been doing, that he was still the big brother who had always had her back. But the truth was, Samantha couldn't afford to be naive anymore. She had spent her life living in the shadows, silently watching as others took advantage of her dreams, her efforts, her hope. She wasn't going to let that happen again. Not this time. Grabbing her coat, she headed out to meet Chris. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Samantha arrived, the soft murmur of the barista preparing drinks filling the otherwise quiet space. She spotted Chris sitting at a table by the window, his face pale and drawn. His eyes met hers, and for a moment there was nothing but a deep, painful silence between them. She slid into the seat opposite him, taking a deep breath as she tried to gather her thoughts. "I didn't want to believe it," Chris said quietly, his voice cracking. I thought, I thought Rachel loved me. I thought she wanted to build a life with me, you know? I didn't see it. I didn't see what she was doing to you, to us." Samantha nodded, her eyes never leaving his. She could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt, the confusion, and yet she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was more than just Rachel's fault. It was her brother's blind trust that had led them here. It was his failure to see the truth that had nearly destroyed everything. "Chris," she said softly, "this isn't just about Rachel. This is about us. About our family. You've always protected me, but now it's my turn to protect you." Chris swallowed hard, looking away for a moment, as if the weight of her words was too much for him to bear. He clenched his fists on the table, his knuckles white. "I should have seen it. I should have realized. But I didn't. I was so focused on the idea of us, on the family we could be, that I missed everything. I missed her lies. I missed her manipulation. I failed you, Sam. I failed us." Samantha reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "You didn't fail me," she said, her voice firm. "You were just trying to protect what you thought was good. But now we have to face the truth. We can't keep pretending." The silence stretched between them, heavy and thick. Samantha could feel the battle inside him, between the love he still had for Rachel and the guilt of the betrayal. She knew it was hard for him, but she also knew that sometimes the hardest thing was accepting the truth, no matter how painful it was. "I don't know what to do, Sam," Chris whispered. "I don't know if I can go through with this." Samantha squeezed his hand, her eyes locking onto his. "You don't have to do it alone. We'll face this together. But you have to choose. You have to decide if you're going to keep protecting the person who used you, or if you're going to stand by me and stand by what's right." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and for a moment, Samantha could see Chris wrestling with himself. His face was a mask of pain, of confusion, but deep down, she knew he understood. She knew he had to make this choice, for himself and for their future. Finally, he nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I want to help you, Sam. I want to make this right. I just don't know how." "You don't have to know yet," Samantha said, her tone softening. "Just don't let her take everything from us. Don't let her take your future. I'll help you. We'll figure it out." The weight of the moment settled between them, and Samantha could see the first glimmer of understanding in her brother's eyes. But just as the tension in the room began to break, Chris's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face draining of color. "It's Rachel," he muttered, his hand trembling as he unlocked the phone. His eyes scanned the message, and his face twisted with anger. "She's demanding the money. She says we're going to lose everything if we don't come up with it by the end of the week." Samantha took a steadying breath, her thoughts racing. She could feel the trap closing in around them. Rachel wasn't done yet. She was pushing, testing, trying to manipulate her way out of the mess she'd created. But Samantha wasn't going to back down. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about her future. It was about showing Rachel and showing herself that she wouldn't be silenced anymore. She would fight for what was hers, even if it meant tearing down everything Rachel had built with her lies. "Let her try," Samantha said, her voice steely. "We're done playing by her rules." "What would you do if the person you loved most betrayed you, but you still had to face them every day? Could you find a way to forgive? Or would you let your anger guide your every decision? Samantha is about to make her move. But will the truth be enough to stop Rachel? Or will it be the final blow that destroys them all? The next chapter is coming soon. Don't miss it. The courthouse was crowded when Samantha walked in, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She glanced at Chris, who was standing beside her, a silent support. He was dressed sharply, his usually disheveled look replaced by a suit that felt out of place on him, but somehow fitting for the occasion. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw tight with a mixture of exhaustion and resolve. The journey they'd taken over the past few weeks had been long, filled with emotions that neither of them had ever expected to experience. The air was thick with anticipation. Today wasn't just a courtroom battle. It was the moment when Rachel would finally face the consequences of her manipulation, her greed. But it was also the day that Samantha would have to close the door on her brother. It was the day she'd finally stop pretending that the family they had once been was still intact. As they made their way to their seats, Samantha's eyes scanned the room. There were others here, other families who had fallen victim to Rachel's deceit, the ones who had trusted her only to have their lives shattered. Their pain was written on their faces, an unspoken bond between them. Rachel, on the other hand, sat with a cold expression, her eyes flickering between the judge and the others in the room, as if she were already calculating her next move. But today, her tricks would no longer work. The sound of the gavel echoed, and the judge called the court to order. Rachel shifted in her seat, and Samantha could feel the quiet tension that radiated from her. She was no longer the confident woman who had controlled every situation with a smile and a whisper. Now, she was just another criminal, a woman who had betrayed those closest to her for nothing but money and materialism. The prosecutor stood up and began presenting the evidence. Each forged signature, each bank transaction that had been manipulated, each lie Rachel had told to get her way. Samantha could barely bring herself to look at her. The woman who had been the wife of her brother, the woman she had once considered family, was now a stranger. Every lie, every betrayal was laid bare. The faces of the other families were grim as they listened, each of them knowing the pain of trusting someone who had no intention of keeping that trust. Then it was Chris's turn to speak. He stood up, his knees trembling slightly. For a moment, Samantha thought he might collapse under the weight of what he had to do. He had spent his entire life protecting others, and now he was about to stand up and tear down the woman he had once loved. "Rachel," he began, his voice shaky but strong, "I thought I knew you. I thought you were the answer to all my problems, the person who would make everything right. But I was wrong." He paused, swallowing hard as if the words were too much to bear. "I see now that you never cared about me or my family. You only cared about the money. You used me, manipulated me, and I let you." His voice broke, and for the first time, Samantha saw the depth of his pain. The guilt, the shame. Samantha felt her heart twist as she watched him. Her brother wasn't a bad person. He had just been blind, believing in something that was never real. She had wanted to protect him, to save him from the hurt that was now consuming him. But this was part of the process. He had to face it. He had to confront Rachel, just as she had confronted him. "I never thought I'd be here," Chris continued, his eyes filling with tears. "But today, I have to face the truth. And I know I've failed you, Sam. I know I've hurt you. But I'm here, and I'm going to make it right." Samantha's eyes filled with unshed tears. She wanted to reach out to him, to tell him that it wasn't his fault, that they could move past this. But she couldn't. Not yet. This was the moment of reckoning, not just for Rachel, but for Chris too. They needed to see it through. The room fell silent as Chris took his seat, the weight of his confession settling over the court. Rachel's expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. A fear, perhaps, that for the first time she couldn't control the situation. Then it was Samantha's turn. She stood slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. The weight of the moment was almost suffocating. This wasn't just about the money. This was about reclaiming what had been taken from her. Not just her education fund, but her dreams, her sense of self, and her family. This was about standing up to the woman who had tried to destroy everything Samantha had worked so hard for. I've spent my life trusting people, thinking they would do right by me, Samantha began, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. But Rachel, you've shown me that trust is something that has to be earned. And you never earned it. You took something from me that wasn't yours to take. You tried to steal my future. She paused, letting the words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. But you didn't just steal my future. You stole my brother's future too. You made him believe that your love was real, that you were the answer to his broken dreams. And now, look at us. Look at what you've done to him, and to all of us. Samantha took a deep breath, her eyes meeting Rachel's for the first time. You may have thought you could get away with it. You may have thought I was just some dreamer, too naive to see your schemes. But you were wrong. You underestimated me. You underestimated the love I have for my family and the strength I have to fight for what's mine. As the judge took his seat to deliver the verdict, Rachel's expression changed. The smug confidence she had once worn so easily was gone, replaced by a look of desperation. She knew the game was over. The gavel came down. Guilty on all charges. 5 years in prison. Restitution to all victims, including the Harris family. No possibility of early release. Samantha's heart raced, but there was no elation, no sense of victory. The battle was over, but the wounds were still there. Rachel was led away, her head hung low, and for the first time, Samantha saw her as she truly was, weak, broken, and alone. The days that followed were filled with paperwork, lawyers, and legalities. Samantha found herself going through the motions, her mind still reeling from the events that had transpired. Chris had filed for divorce the day after Rachel's arrest. The damage had been done, but in a strange way, Samantha could feel her brother starting to heal. Slowly, he was coming to terms with the truth, and for the first time in a long while, he was showing up for himself. He was finally standing tall, not as the man who had been used, but as the man who had taken control of his life. And Samantha? She was one step closer to her dream. The medical school interview went perfectly. The acceptance letter arrived just days after the trial, and her secured funds were now locked away in an account she controlled. Her grandmother's legacy was intact. Samantha stood in front of the mirror that evening, adjusting the collar of her white coat. She smiled at her reflection, the future finally within reach. This was the moment she had worked for, fought for. The past was behind her, and now she could finally start anew. Chris knocked softly on the door, a faint smile on his face. "You did it, Sam? You really did it." Samantha smiled back, her heart full. "We did it, Chris. We're gonna be okay." How do you move forward when everything you believed in has been shattered? Do you fight for what you've lost, or do you rebuild from the ground up? If you enjoyed this story, comment 100, and let me know how it made you feel. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to share this video with your friends, and thank you for watching Life Stories.